The most important character in any manga or comic is the protagonist. The protagonist is the main character, and they are the character that we see the story through the perspective of. In today's video, we're going to be going back to basics, and I'm going to be talking about how you can create an incredible manga protagonist that stands out on the page. So the first thing you want to do when you begin creating your protagonist is give them a clear goal. Typically, the goal of the protagonist will be the main goal of the story. So when you give your protagonist a goal, you're essentially giving the story direction. You want to give them a driving, motivating force that keeps them moving forward in the story, even when things seem impossible. This goal might be to defeat the villain, to protect someone, to uncover a truth, or to level up in their own way. This motivating force keeps the story focused, and it means that the readers will be more likely to want to root for your character. Now, as well as giving them a strong goal and the motivating force behind the goal, you also want to give them a strong internal conflict. Pair their external goal with a personal inner flaw or emotional struggle. This internal conflict makes them feel more believable on the page. Every time they become closer towards achieving their goal, they feel this sense of this internal conflict. Essentially, you are trying to balance the internal conflict, the struggle within themselves, with the battles they face on the outside, even if you're not necessarily creating a shonen series. For example, if you were creating a shoujo slice of life, maybe the external conflict is that they have a rival getting between the one that they care about, between them and the one that they care about. And their internal conflict might be that they have low self-worth. Maybe they don't feel like they're good enough. So as you can see, this is a sort of balancing act between the external and internal conflict. And this balancing act can be applied no matter what genre you are telling your story in. Now, as well as this, you also want to give your protagonist distinct personality traits. You want to make them memorable just from a few memorable traits and personality aspects. So if you were to summarize your protagonist with just 3 main traits, what would these traits be? I would suggest picking one and then picking 2 other smaller sub-traits. So for example, their main trait might be that they're really confident. So you want to give them 2 other traits. It might be that they are empathetic, they are able to empathize well with the other characters around them. And the third trait that you might give them may be that they are someone really courageous. They are someone who is willing to do the difficult or dangerous things that no one else is willing to do. Maybe they are willing to do these things because they don't think it through first, or maybe they are someone that believes that they have the skills needed to get it done. So we've already briefly discussed giving them a motivation when it comes to the goal, but we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Giving them a relatable motivation is really important because this is the driving force behind their actions. You basically need to think about what happens if this character does not achieve the goal. So when you give them the motivations, you need to think about what is lost if the character fails. This helps you to build stakes in the story. Even in mythical or fantasy settings, their reasons for wanting to achieve the goal should feel believable. So you need to think about if your character does not achieve the goal, what is lost? And there should be something very important that is lost if they do not achieve the goal, because this makes them achieving this goal all the more important. So we're talking about creating a protagonist for a manga or a comic. So in this, one of the most important things is giving them a good design, and a design that remains memorable on the page. So you want to ensure that their design feels recognizable at a glance. Try to avoid making them feel too bland or like the other characters in your story. You want to give them one main distinct quality. Essentially, you want to add a hook in their design where when readers look at this character, they feel more compelled to want to learn more about them. So their design can provide a lot of information about their personality, their backstory, and their role in the story, and this applies to any character you're creating. So I'd recommend first of all looking at their hairstyle, their clothing, and any accessories, and thinking about how you can apply those aspects to it. So first of all, think about their personality. So if they are someone who is shy, how does that influence the character's design? Would they be more likely to Would they be more likely to dress more formally? Are they someone who dresses more casually? Are they someone who wears more revealing clothing? So how does their personality influence the way that this character dresses? And the same applies for their hairstyle too. In a lot of shonen series, especially in the more classic shonen series, the shonen protagonist might have really spiky or distinct hair, and that is perfectly fine, but you also want to think about, why does this character have this hairstyle? These types of characters are usually also really confident and bold, and so that also reflects in the hairstyle they have. But you also want to give them something that makes your readers curious about what this character has experienced. For example, if you have a character carrying around like a pendant, for example, a mysterious looking pendant, the readers might wonder, where did they get that pendant? Especially in a fantasy world, the pendant might seem really magical. So this allows the readers to ask questions and makes them curious to learn more about your character. Design can also allow you to provide information about the world itself. So rather than explaining that the world is post-apocalyptic, for example, if your character was dressed in a way that suited the environment, then your readers would already know at a glance what kind of world and story you're telling. You also want to give them expressive features. In a manga, the facial expressions are really important. You want to try and make their expressions look distinct from the other characters in your story. So think about how you can change their eye shape, their eyebrow shape, their mouth shape, and even their nose shape to make them look different from the other characters in your book. When you're creating your protagonist, giving them signature abilities and skills is also important, particularly if you are creating more of a shonen or something with a power system. But even if you're creating something set in daily life, you can still give them a main skill or ability that sets them apart from others. And they don't have to be perfect at this either, and that imperfection makes them feel more believable. So I'm not suggesting that you should make them perfect at everything, but give them one thing that they are better at than the average character. For example, maybe your character in a fantasy world might be really good at sword fighting. Maybe they trained since they were young, so this is their special ability or skill. Or maybe they have learned how to craft or design clothes since they were young, and so this is a particular skill that they have. They could be good at writing, at drawing, at cooking, or gardening. Any particular skill. Think about what skills your character has, why they have these skills, and this can make them to feel more believable as a character. So when you're creating a protagonist, your character will not stay the same throughout the entire story. And this is where character arcs are really important. Character arcs show how your character should change over time. Essentially, your protagonist should go through multiple stages of character growth throughout the story. So think about who your protagonist is at the beginning and who you want them to become by the end, and what things they need to go through and experience to get to that end point. So at the beginning, maybe they are someone who is somewhat naive, maybe they are overconfident, and throughout the story, by the end of it, they become someone powerful, but someone who is able to protect the people they care about. What takes them from being this naive character to someone who is selfless and overprotective of the people they care about? You need to think about then what experiences they have throughout the story. Maybe they are forced to overcome difficult challenges. They're forced to fight challenging opponents. All of these smaller challenges make them stronger over time. Your protagonist is not someone who should act alone. Even if they are the main character in the story, that is the one telling the story, they should have important relationships with the other people around them that really helps them to grow throughout their story. They need to have friendship, rivals, and even mentors that show the different aspects of the protagonist. Some of the most important characters are the secondary main characters and the antagonists, which I'll be talking about in the next videos. But all of these characters help to show different sides of the protagonist. The protagonist is not the only character in your story, and the way the protagonist bounces off other characters and talks to other people will help you to reveal more information about them in the long run. You want to ensure that your protagonist also has flaws. It can become frustrating with a protagonist when they continuously succeed, and while this is great, it doesn't make them realistic as a character. Everyone makes mistakes at some points, and so you need to ensure that your protagonist's mistakes actually matter. Their failures will make their victories more satisfying and make them more realistic in the long run. It will mean that your readers will be left on the edge of their seats because they won't know whether or not your protagonist will succeed. This is why it is so important to show that your protagonist has flaws too. Optionally, you can give your character catchphrases or unique things that set them apart from the other characters. Small habits or reoccurring lines can make them more memorable, but I also recommend using this sparingly. Essentially, when you're creating your protagonist, you want to tie their story to the overall theme of the story because we are seeing this story through the protagonist. So we really want to know what kind of experience that they are having and how this connects to your main story themes. A theme is essentially the message you're trying to get across in your story. So for example, if you're presenting a theme of freedom or learning about oneself, their journey should reinforce the overall message. So you need to think about how you can connect what your protagonist does to the main underlying messages in your story, and this will help your story to feel more cohesive overall. So essentially, when you're developing a protagonist, it's a balancing act between their story and the rest of the story that you are presenting them through. And remember that just because your protagonist is the main character, it doesn't necessarily mean that they need to be the hero. In fact, there's many cases where the protagonist of the story is more of a villainous character. So your protagonist is just the character that the readers are seeing the story through the eyes of, and this character can have a range of different personalities and traits. Just think about how you can balance your protagonist's story with the rest of the story you're telling, and you'll be able to turn it into an incredible manga that keeps your readers hooked from beginning to end. Thank you so much for joining me in today's video, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know what kind of protagonist you're creating because I would love to hear your thoughts, and I'm sure others would love to hear your thoughts too. Check out my protagonist development worksheet available on my website minascross.com. It really helps you get into those smaller details about your character, making it far easier to imagine this character from beginning to end. Again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!